Welcome to another episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, interview or have conversations with relatives of famous people, whether they are sports, music, TV, film, art, science, politics. If they have a famous relative, let's find out about who they are. And in the process of doing all this, we got a really great sponsorship from visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's my hometown of Myrtle Beach, the area that Van and I grew up in. It's great for golf. It's fun for family beach vacations. It's great for the holidays. It's a very family-friendly beach. Plan your vacation at visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com. Now, today's guest, I'm super excited about it. I don't know Charlie. I met his father in the 80s when my sister Vanna was on Johnny Carson's show. And his dad was a guest. He had a huge hit at the time called "At This Moment." His name was Bill. His name is Billy Vera. Billy, to my opinion, is probably one of the most underrated superstars there should be. Man, the guy's voice is amazing, and he has had a career. I don't know, 60 years in the business. I mean, he's had hits in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, the guy is phenomenal. If you don't know Billy Vera and the Beaters, do yourself a favor, ask Alexa, play Billy Vera. I mean, I had it on the other day, 2.5 hours, and it never repeated a song. So today's guest is Charlie McCord, the son of Billy Vera.
Relatively Famous podcast with Chip White.
Charlie, welcome to Relatively Famous.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Facebook, your dad posted a picture of he and Vanna, and did a little story about how they met at the Johnny Carson show, and I happened to be there that day. I remembered that day very well. And your dad was so nice after the show. He gave me his number. He put me on the list to a couple of shows around LA at the time. And I remember one was in the marina at this bar up on the second story of like over a sale shop or something. And man, the floor was literally bouncing. His mic was going back. I thought I was going to knock him out, man. And it scared the heck out of me, man. I was like, this floor's going to collapse, man. These people are just rocking too hard. I just stood back on the side. But, again, he was just super nice to me. And when we reconnected and he said, I said, hey, I'd love to have one of your kids on the show. And he goes, I bet Charlie would do it. So welcome, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to do it. I remember a lot of those shows, going to them as a kid. There was a bunch that he would go do at the marina and Santa Monica and things like that. And yeah, I just remember, the crowd would go wild.
Yeah, Billy Vera and the Beatles, one of the most amazing horn sections, and your dad's voice, I've said it before, it's like he's probably one of three white guys who, if you don't know him, you'd go, that's an amazing African-American soul singer, I think people are shocked. So tell me a little bit about who you are, kind of what life was like being the kid of Billy Vera, because like I said, your dad's probably one of the hardest working men in show business that I know.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up here in Los Angeles, and I was able to get exposure to a lot of great music growing up. I think that's the main thing, and it really influenced me. Like I remember going to Santa Monica Pier, and he was playing outdoors, and it was a big party, and just being a little kid and dancing, not really knowing that this is like this is not normal for most kids to get to see their dad's band rocking, the Santa Monica Pier or something like that. I think that was like their 25th anniversary as a band, or 20th or 15th, I remember. And now it's 20 years later. They're still out there playing every couple months. They still do shows. So that's amazing. And growing up, like I said, I didn't really always think of it as something crazy special. In Los Angeles, there's a lot of kids of somebody, and So, it was definitely a great childhood and exposure to lots of music.
Did you get to hang out with other musicians' kids, or like, I don't know who'd be a big LA music person, the Tubes or
Uh,
somebody. I don't know. What was it like,
yeah,
for you as coming up as a son of a prominent musician?
yeah. I mean, there is a somewhat of a generation, like an extra generation gap than I think, because he was maybe like 44, 45 when he had me, so later in life, right? So I feel like I got the end of maybe some of that world, but I didn't meet any of, like, let's say, musicians I was like, me and my friends were listening to as a kid, like growing up in junior high. Let's say everyone was listening to like Blink-182 maybe, and Green Day and things like that. Those are the bands I would naturally come across, um, through K-Rock and all this other stuff. So that was completely separate than the music my dad played. So that was really interesting dynamic for me. It was having a older brother that would show me like the modern cool bands, and then having my dad show me, the Duke Ellingtons, the old soul bands he used to play with, and his huge record collection. Which, if you don't know, my dad has a bedroom full of 45s. He's an avid record collector, which is also amazing. But I didn't meet a lot of like rock and roller kids. But there was some interesting connections. Like, he had a famous recording for his song "At This Moment" that was at the Roxy, and then my brother ended up working there, inadvertently, as a sound engineer. So I got to go to a bunch of shows there separately, like maybe 20 years after he had already recorded his record there. So there was a lot of confluence in that regard, where, the same world, but just a different generation of people, I'd say. But I did go to, a private school where, like the Olsen twins, like, were there, and all sorts of ridiculous things like that. So I did get to meet, you know, some well-known people
Yeah.
throughout the
Did you
years.
get to go to the set of Family Ties after the song became such a hit?
No, because I wasn't born yet. So
Oh,
that's what I'm talking about. The generation. I'm 35.
okay.
Um, so I was born basically right after, his major hit there. But the band was still rocking, and that horn section was, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
It takes you to a different. It gives you a different perspective on music than, like, 90s rock and roll, which is, like I said, like what my friends were listening to,
Yeah.
essentially.
So tell me, you're a musician. Okay, you said you had a
Mhm.
brother, your sister. Is everyone else in the business? Are you just kind of the only musician in the family?
No, yeah, his other kids are older, and they're not really in music. So it was just me and my brother, Lee, who, I grew up with more closely. He was the closest in age, and, yeah, he was kind of just as much of the inspiration for me to play music, because I had an older brother play drums. I was like, okay, I'll play guitar and we'll play together. Great, perfect. And he, yeah. So it was just me and Lee. I think were the main musicians, of the family after my dad. Yeah.
Well, tell us about your music. Tell us, what type you really like the best. Kind of just,
Hmm.
where can find your music. Kind of give us
Yeah.
a rundown on your music career.
Yeah, mine. I mean, I'm pretty like local LA. I didn't go and get a big hit, like my dad did. But yeah, I play, a mixture of music. It's kind of in the same vein. I've got like some soulful rock and roll. That's my own personal music. I put out under just my name, Charlie McCord. So you can check that out on Spotify and things like that. Um, and that's, yeah. So I just actually put out my first songs as a solo artist over the past year and a half. I'd sort of taken my time. I didn't like throw out music right when I was 20, but I had been playing in local bands, rock and roll, sort of country Americana bands is kind of what I've been doing the past 5 or so years. There's a scene here in LA. It's been growing and growing. in the country music scene, which you know, you don't think of LA necessarily, or California in general. You don't really think of country music, but it's been coming really hard the past 3 years here. So I've been able to meet a bunch of cats who play, you know, these great Telecaster and steel string kind of licks, which yeah, it's a slight change, but it's been super fun to play with these bands. I've been playing this one band for maybe 7 years, Ryan Hahn and the Believers. He's like a Kentucky guy, and we've met all these various musicians here through that. And yeah, you know, music is great fun. I've always found it to be, you know, something that, you know, helps you. Writing music is like cathartic for me as much as anything else. It's not like a breadwinning thing. It's a it's a you know, cathartic exercise of feeling happy making music, essentially.
One of my favorite country albums, and I'll call it country, is from the 80s, and it's called A Town South of Bakersfield. Kind of where Dwight Yoakam got his first hit off of. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So, yeah, LA's got, you know, it's kind of had a country thing. It's just people, like you said, just don't think about it. You know, Buck Owens is, you know, Sacramento.
Right, yeah, that's the California country sound.
Yeah,
its
that's
own
kind of
specific
it.
breed. Yeah.
But,
yeah, I actually got to work with the guitar player, the guy who's been touring with Dwight Yoakam lately as a guitar player, Eugene Edwards. I got to work with him. I was working at Fender Guitars for a while. They had a educational app for learning guitar called Fender Play, and I would help produce the videos. So I try and keep my regular work that's more in film production side connected to music as much as possible, because like I said, that's kind of been something I've been grown up surrounded with, and you know, it's my inspiration, if you want to say that. And so that was really fun to get to meet a bunch of, you know, guitar teachers and musicians through there as cool. Well, Fender.
So what do you do in the film and TV production end?
Yeah, so I'm a producer. So when I was, it's mostly educational videos, right? So pretty small scale, not like big commercials or film, you know, actual films. It's sort of running little film production studio, and they do. I'm still doing the educational video realm. It's not less so music right now. I'm doing one that's around building websites, so that's interesting and kind of out of my wheelhouse a little bit, but it's fun to, you know, help people learn is important, you know. So that's kind of the, you know, money side of things. But yeah, always playing, going to shows, and you know, supporting local music as much as I can when I'm not doing that. Yeah.
So who are some of your musical favorites or idols, or, you know, like someone you would really love to play with or tour with or meet? What are, you know, what we all have our you know, I'd like to meet Sting. My wife loves him, so I'd like to meet him. You know, I think he's amazing. So
yeah, I did get to meet some cool jazz people over the years. I often think that, like, the musicians I want to meet probably have mostly passed away by now, unfortunately. Like Duke Ellington and you know, and then on the other spectrum, maybe the Led Zeppelin team would be amazing. It'd be great to meet Jimmy Page and stuff like that. That would be awesome. Who else? Yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to a bunch of different stuff. Like I said, like, you know, Incubus and 311, and then I had like a metal phase, so I listened to a lot of like Pantera and all this varying stuff that my dad probably couldn't stand listening to if I showed it to him. And I'm also like on the side a big hip hop head. Like one of my first bands was with my brother playing drums, and we had a little like hip hop rock band, like think maybe Rage Against the Machine, but a little more hip hop, where I wasn't rapping. Jeez, no one wants to hear me rap. I was playing guitar, but we had a really good friend who was a great MC. So yeah, I like to jump around a lot musically. You know, if I could meet a Tribe Called Quest, that would be so cool. And meet Q-Tip. Yeah, so all over the spectrum, I think.
Yeah, I agree. You're definitely on a varying scale from Duke Ellington to Quest. So
Yeah.
it gives you a big perspective. Who knows? Maybe one of the guys will listen to this and they'll call you up.
They should.
Now you said you play a lot locally. Have you toured, or have you been out on tour with other bands?
Not I haven't really toured like big national tours, no. But I did get to go to Nashville with my buddy Ryan Hahn last year, which was really awesome. I had never been there before, and we got to play a couple radio shows and some of the big, not huge venues, but kind of like the locally known venues like Kimbrough's. We got to play, which was really fun. That was like the most recent little tour, and then I've gone up and the California coast, small scale, doing some solo little tours and doing acoustic shows and things like that. But yeah, no major tours. I didn't get to play with huge artists like my pops did. He's told me some good stories though of the people he's gone on tour with. It's amazing.
Now, do you still inspire to do that, or is it still something you would like to? I know you said you're putting music out.
Yeah.
Would you like to be a full-time musician? I mean, like your dad, although he did a lot of voiceover too. But
yeah, I mean, I think the reality of it is that's not really I want to say valid. It's valid, obviously, but it's not the greatest career choice at this time when Spotify pays you 6 cents, for thousands of streams. It's not really. There's not much of a benefit. Now you could be like a road dog and out there touring with a band and make your living that way. It's a little tough. I don't really picture myself being on the road kind of guy, Willie Nelson style, constantly out there. So I don't picture that for me. I would like to do like small local tours to promote my own music. It would be great to maybe go back to Nashville, go up to San Francisco, or now my brother lives up there. And keep it kind of more mellow than trying to do a big tour. I don't have the backing to do anything like that. But it would be fun, I mean, but yeah, I just don't picture it as being like the realistic choice.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that streaming Spotify and different places, man, the music business used to be a viable career. And, you were vested as an album buyer for me back, when I was younger stuff. The idea just, God, you buy this album, look at the cover art, look at the musicians who played on it, look at the lyrics. You would sit there and you would dissect your album cover and lyrics while listening to an album with your buddies and stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my era was CDs, but the same thing. We had the physical thing in our hand, and yeah, you'd open up the liner notes and learn all about it. And now, like I do all this research on, okay, well, what are people doing for marketing strategies for your music? And, there's these, playlists you're supposed to get on, and it's kind of like a cottage industry where some people are like paying, to try and get, I guess pay to play has always been kind of a background thing. So, it's always been there, the icky side, of the business. But, so that's why I try and not put too much pressure on myself. Like, I got to make it. I'm going to make my music and have some other side way of making money. And like you said, that's what my dad had to do even with a number one hit. He was like, okay, I'm going to work on the side as a voiceover actor and make money that way. I don't think he would be nearly as comfortable if he had just relied on music at that point. So it was a godsend, I think, for the family, for him to get that side of work as well.
Yeah, I think one of the last times I saw him was actually, and I can't remember if I was using him as the artist or if he was recording something else, but it was in a recording, doing a voiceover session. I was doing, I think, a Wheel of Fortune voiceover session.
Oh, cool.
And I think he may have, I can't even remember, man. It's been, 20 years that we were at this, and I can't even remember the name of the place. Do you make YouTube videos of your, like, I mean, Zach Bryan, these guys who just kind of hit YouTube and all of a sudden they're exploded? Is that something you explore, or you
I
just do Spotify?
I haven't done YouTube. I've been trying my hand at some of the Instagram short form videos lately. So my handle is Listen Charles. If anyone out there wants to check it out, and I actually just got a new little camera that I'm playing with. Yeah, essentially, I think the YouTube world. Yeah, I need to work on that side of it. But yeah, so what I've been focusing on is like the vertical short form Instagram reels. And so I've done a few of those, and it's like, okay, I can get, either a performance, just do like an acoustic performance, or if I'm playing live shows, get somebody to film the live show and post those. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm trying to figure out the best way to, get the music out there to the most people. But yeah, there's maybe not as much of a organic.
Yeah, it's definitely a changed market, like you were saying. I know that even doing the podcast, excuse me, the podcast, it's a full-time gig just trying to get on social media, make your posts, try to tag people that might expand our viewership and our listenership.
Right.
And with music, it's, the same thing. It's like, except for we can try to get sponsors to kind of help cover the cost. With you guys, it's different.
Right.
And so I wonder, like, if there's opportunities as an independent as you are. It's like, how do you start that distribution? How do you, and still trying to make a living? Is there something that's churning in your head that might attract? Hopefully you'll get some listeners off of here. I mean, is there something that you're?
Yeah, I mean, so the social media world is its own kind of thing. Something else I'm working on the side. This year, when I was in between gigs, I started recording these because I studied a little bit of classical guitar when I was in my 20s. So I decided to record. I haven't put them out yet. It's kind of like my next little project. Is I want to put out these little instrumental guitar pieces and try and get them in film and TV placements. So I feel like that's kind of one of those things where if you have instrumental music, it might be easier to kind of get into some of these little sync libraries that, have tons of music that people can kind of like categorize and search for when they're putting their film projects together. So that's kind of one avenue I'm exploring coming up is okay, well, there's this whole big film and TV world. There's constantly, videos being put out and new shows coming out. So, and there's always music in them. Sometimes there's like 20 little pieces of music in a 5-minute scene. They just kind of cut between them. So that's kind of one way. Maybe that's less exposure and more kind of like a side income side of things. But yeah, I think playing shows too is an underrated way of getting people to listen to your music. And that sounds obvious maybe to you, but there's a lot of kids out there that I see they post these really well produced videos on Instagram or TikTok or things like that. And then I was hosting a little singer songwriter showcase for a while, and I would invite somebody out like that, and they didn't have any real to come to shows. They had 10,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, and they didn't have like hardcore fans who want to go see them. And I think there's a little, besides just that, there's also a changing culture. Live shows are always at bars historically where people are drinking, and I think there's a little bit of people are trying to step away from that mentality. It was like, okay, you have to be like partying hard to listen to good music. So I think there's a little bit, venues are having a hard time with that because they need beer, beers to go out the door to make their living. But I think people are trying to figure out a way to make, put on shows and have performances and have enjoyable experiences for audiences that don't revolve necessarily around, partying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting change.
Yeah, here in San Antonio and the surrounding area, live music's still pretty big, but
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. You got Green Hall, which is amazing in Green, Texas, and JT Floors. I mean, they're great places to see shows. Sam's Burger Joint here that is constantly doing live music, but it's hard to convince people night after night to come see somebody. I mean, they're just, even someone that they know, it's hard. The prices have gone up in big venues, and and like you said, it's just, how do you get that audience? My wife, we were in LA for 20 years. My wife was in a band, the Pay and Play on Sunset. She's played, everywhere up and down the Roxy in different places that you were talking about. And it's these places. How do you draw in an audience? How do you convince your people to come see you?
Yeah, and when you think about like built-in audiences, they don't really exist as much anymore either. Like Sunset Strip, there was some TV show recently where they kind of showed the Sunset Strip in its heyday, and there's like, crowds of people just like on the street. And I live pretty close. I live in West Hollywood, so I'll drive by there, and it's just traffic, cars traffic. There's nobody out there on the streets like waiting to get in videos and things like that. It's not. There's no just like big group of people out there trying to go to shows. So if you're putting on a show, it's like texting all your friends, hey, come see me, and if you don't do that, nobody's going to show up to this venue. So it's like, it's a challenge. So there's changes ahead, I think, for the music world in that regard. But you think about my dad's world, he would play the same venue 6 nights a week, backing band as the backing band, and it would be the same artist, the same headliner, doing that same venue for 6 days, and people would just be there. Yeah. It's a total different world than what we're dealing with today. Like there's nobody who would get the entire week of a venue, and it'd be a success today. Not even Taylor Swift does 7 shows in a city. I mean, it's a total different world.
Yeah, I think Billy Joel at the Garden was probably one of the last of those. But I worked at a country bar in North Myrtle Beach when I was growing up. I was a DJ and then a bartender, and it was called Cowboys Nightlife. And the same things, like we would book a band for the week. It might be the Coulters or Super Grit Cowboy Band, but they would get the week, right? And people would actually plan their vacation around who might be playing at Cowboys that week, and they'd be playing every night. And then we'd get lucky. In the summer we'd book like a George Strait or John Schneider or Shelley West for a big show. But these bands were there every night of the week for a week, and sometimes they'd get 2 or 3 weeks of summer, and people would come to see that particular band. And I remember my wife playing Sunset. Man, it was. Dude, we were struggling. Back then it was flyers. You're sending flyers.
Exactly.
To your friends.
Yeah, go posting up. I have a street team. Remember those days too? Doesn't.
So what are you hoping for the future for? And we kind of talked about it. Let's kind of delve in, because this is we try to keep these pretty evergreen. We're not talking about something that's happening tomorrow. But if someone finds this video, this podcast 3 years down the road, what do you hope they're going to find you musically? Where do you think you'll be? How can hopefully this podcast push your musical career forward? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think it kind of revolves around some of my solo project music that I'm trying to put out here under Charlie McCord. My intention is to I've put like the world today is like singles is kind of like how they tell you to do it now. So I've put out 4 singles, which is eventually going to be an EP called We Are One. So that'll be out either at the end of next year probably. And my intention is to just keep putting out songs in this regard. I've been constantly chugging away here at the studio, and putting out, just putting out new songs and not expecting the world, but like I said, it's something that I feel like I need to do. If I leave anything in the world, it'll be just some good music, hopefully. I don't think it needs to be, world famous or anything like that. It's not really what I'm expecting. What I'm I would love for a bunch of people to hear my music. My generally what I always tell people is that I try and bring positivity to my music. So if you look at my song titles, it's "We Are One," uh, "Don't Let Them Bring You Down." Uh, my next one's going to be "Live Like You Mean It." So I have this whole undertone of trying to stay positive, because obviously the world's always in a crazy place these days. It's one thing or the other, one crisis to the next. And so something I try and always bring, and will always have this undertone of positivity and love for your fellow man. For me, we get stuck in all the hate, and I want my music to kind of be that place where you listen to it and you kind of are struck by, like, oh, the world's not that bad after all. We can love each other. We can treat somebody with kindness. We can so as far as promotion goes for that, I think I just hope that people listen to the songs and kind of get that message from the music.
Well, I've been a film producer, still am, and I've done probably, I don't know, 20 award-winning short films. You're in LA, man. Go to USC, go to UCLA, go to anywhere there's like film schools. Start reaching out.
Yeah.
Donate songs to short films. Say, hey, like I can do an original song, or I have an original song.
Yeah.
You might get, sometimes, man, people hear something from a short song, a short film, they go, ooh, I like that song, and they may reach out to use for something else, man. And people listen to it and stuff. I mean, there's kind of just throwing that out there at you.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close to end of the time here, and I like to kind of end on: is there something I didn't ask you, a question I didn't ask, or something that you really wanted to share that we kind of got sidetracked on and you forgot while we were talking, that you want to kind of end on?
That's a good question. No, I think we covered a lot of great stuff. I mean, I think some stuff that's that one kind of me, actually. No, I feel like we covered a bunch of great things. I mean, I know we didn't maybe talk about my pops as much as maybe we could have.
Give me some pop stories.
Yeah.
Dude, I love your dad, man. He is, like I said, I have been so impressed with, like, I was just the brother of Vanna, and he was so like, hey, dude, here's my number.
Yeah.
Come see a show, put me on the list, and over time we lost contact just because that's the way life goes. But he is
Yeah, I mean,
one of the greatest guys in the business I know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe why my music is positive is partially because of his and my parents and brothers, like, good attitude about the world, and yeah, he's always seemed super down to earth, outward to other people, I think, as well as to me.
Your favorite story about him with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I always love, like, I think the one I mentioned that I always think of is being a kid and dancing to his band. I would get to go to these little shows, and his band was always so nice to me, and getting to meet those guys. And I know I would learn from his guitar player, try and steal their licks, and my brother would take lessons with their drummer and all that stuff. So I think just getting to hang out with real musicians was, you don't really think about it when you're in the moment, but it's super inspiring.
Okay, my last question then: at what point in your life, do you remember, like, was it like a moment where you realize, holy cow, man, my dad has been in the business,
Yeah,
fairly successful. I mean, I would say successful from the 60s, 70s. At what point do you go, holy cow, man, my dad was not just a one-hit wonder. He literally had decades of a career going.
Yeah, I think it was when he was telling me about he played in the backing band for Aretha Franklin and and that just blowing my mind, like, what, you did that? And just getting to hear over time all the stories like that, like James Brown throwing Aretha under the bus for something, or vice versa, whatever it was, on a show, like changing the keys, like just being impressed by how musical he is too. He's not maybe known as like a, shredding guitar player or anything like that, but like always has had this knowledge of music that is just so impressive. He's like a musical history book is kind of what it comes down to. He knows everybody who played on like every soul record, basically.
That's a great term, musical history book. I like that.
Yeah. He definitely is. He knows everything.
And you can always go back and look up his performances now on YouTube of Johnny Carson. And he, Billy and the Beaters were under a different name, but they were the house band in the movie Blind Date on the date with Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger. Anyway, Charlie, it's been phenomenal, man. It's been great chatting with you, and we look forward to seeing you when we get out to L.A.
Yeah, hit me when you're in town. It was great chatting with you.
Appreciate it. We'll chat soon. Thanks, Charlie.
See ya.
Man, Charlie McCord was amazing. I love his dad. I love his music, and I'm looking forward to watching Charlie's career really start taking off, because, Relatively Famous will make him super famous. Anyway, I want to thank you, the viewer, the listener, for being here. I'm truly humbled that you take the time out of your day to spend with us. I want to thank our sponsor, visitmyrtlebeach.com. If you really want to go see where I'm from and where Vanna's from and what life was like for us, well, it's changed because it's grown up. But go plan a vacation through visitmyrtlebeach.com. You can go play golf. You can go get some great seafood. There's some surf sometimes. Again, it's super family friendly. Some great music is there. House of Blues, 3001. Anyway, visitmyrtlebeach.com. I also want to thank Nelco Media and Nelco Comics, where we record our podcasts. If you happen to know someone who's a relative of someone famous, we're always looking for guests. You can reach out to me at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. And, or if you are someone's relative, reach out to us. And again, I humbly thank you for spending your time with us.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.